Jay, you're done PW. Yeah, he is.
Okay, somebody want to say what the pledges are? You're back in the back, just to have some good stuff. Do you want to do that when you do the pledge? Yes. Before the pledge, just so I want to give you a few housekeeping.
Housekeeping. Oh, I'm fine.
Well, I haven't.
We get.
Like stand right there, the pledge allegiance, and then just.
Good evening, everyone. I would like my name is Stephen King. I'm the commander here of American Legion Post 808, and I would like to personally welcome each and every one of you and thank you for being here this evening. Before we get everything rolling, if everyone could stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ashley, if you could lead us and orient yourself to the flag here.
No, that's a 55.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ashley. And Jay, if you would lead us in the POW MIA reading.
Well, before we start our activities this evening, I'd like to pause to recognize our POWs and MIAs. We can call your attention to this small table, which occupies a place of dignity and honor near the head table. It is set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our Corps are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as POWs and MIAs. We call them comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families tonight, so we join together to pay our humble tribute to them and bear witness to their continued absence. This table, set for one, is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his or her suppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single red rose in the vase signifies the blood that they may have shed in sacrifice to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. This rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep the faith while awaiting their return. The yellow ribbon in the vase represents the yellow ribbons worn on the lapels of thousands who demand the unyielding determination a proper accounting of our comrades who are not among us tonight. The slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless volunteers of the families as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us on this night. The chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors to the open arms of a grateful nation. Let us pray to the Supreme Commander that all our comrades will soon be back within our ranks. Let us remember and never forget their sacrifices. May God forever watch over them and protect them and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. You all may be seated. So, before I bring our guest speaker up, I would like to read his biography. Colonel Charles G. Eikens, United States Marine Corps Reserve, has combined military and Department of Defense civilian career for over 30 years while serving as a civilian foreign affairs specialist at the Pentagon on the policy staff of the Secretary of Defense. He was involved in the creation and conduct of defense policy regarding humanitarian operations in Somalia, the aftermath of genocide in Rwanda, countering an insurgency in Sierra Leone, building African militaries' capabilities to participate in peacekeeping operations, developing the African Command, and many other defense policy challenges. He is a veteran of the Persian Gulf War and Operation Iraqi Freedom, as well as other operations. He has served for the artillery and infantry as a forward observer and naval gunfire spotter, forward air controller, a parachutist, and finally, as a senior intelligence liaison officer. I would like all of you to please help me welcome him with a warm round of applause. Colonel Charles G. Ikens.
Thanks, Stephen, and thanks, Jay, for inviting me here tonight. For one thing, as a bachelor, I never turned down an opportunity to eat out for something for free. I see some gray hair here tonight. Bear with me because a lot of my comments are going to be directed at the student veterans. So I don't think most of you guys, and by that I include female veterans, when I say guys, who may be here are interested in hearing me gas on about myself. I know I never was. But while I'm not that old, I was in the Marines before some of the people in this room were born. And I do have shared experiences with you not only from deployments and war, but also as a student veteran on several occasions. So here's some background. I've sat in a room just like this, and I've listened to someone just like me talk at me about the special responsibility I had as a veteran, as well as the value not only of the life experience resident within this room you're obtaining as a student, and the contributions you make, and the example you set to others who haven't yet had the opportunity to serve. While you're students, you're also life teachers. And I'll continue to stress this, whether you want to be or not. In fact, the only reason I stand here now is because the pursuit of education is what initially drew me to the service, to the Marines. In 1976, I was a senior in high school. Right now I can hear people doing the math in their head. Talking to the Marine recruiter, he told me that if I enlisted on delayed entry before December 31st, I could get the old GI Bill, that's the World War II one, which had some pretty good benefits. And that was a pretty good opportunity for me at the time. There was no money for me, the youngest, to attend college. I came from a family of four. My father's health prevented him from working. One of my older brothers was already in the Army, and since it was just after Vietnam, the military was really beating the bushes since everybody's older brother was telling them to avoid the military. They even offered me $2,000 to go into combat arms. That was pretty enticing. At the same time, I also discovered ROTC scholarships, and I got the Marines to agree to cancel the enlistment if I got the scholarship. That's how desperate they were. So I enlisted and also applied simultaneously for the scholarship. The Marines didn't care. They were getting me either way, either as an enlisted guy or as an officer. Well, the recruiting sergeant cared. Gunnery Sergeant Hanson, whatever you are. Long story short, I got the scholarship, and the recruiting sergeant was, well, let's just say profoundly disappointed. So off I went to Ohio State, where even though I was a college student, I had military-style responsibilities, and it being just after Vietnam, wearing one's uniform with a Marine-style haircut to class on Thursdays was usually less than pleasant. That could sometimes be a very long walk to class. But I made it through the 4 years and 3 active duty summers, including OCS and airborne school. And after accepting my diploma at Ohio Stadium, I had to hurriedly change into my uniform, drive across town, and then get sworn in as a second lieutenant of Marines. So my 6 years as a regular on active duty took me to Australia, Central and South America, Europe, the Mediterranean. I served in great units with great Marines. I got to do a lot of very interesting things, including parachuting once a week. I and as a result, I became very experienced with orthopedic injuries. So I decided I wanted to do other things. So in 1988, I show up at Ohio University to pursue a master's in international affairs. At OU, I was a bit of an odd duck. There was no ROTC, and if there were student veterans, they must have been laying low, as I hardly ever ran into any, other than a guy who had been a captain in the 101st at Hamburger Hill in Vietnam, and he was my bartender. So I took a job as a proctor. That was a joke, by the way. I took a job as a proctor. It was sort of like what it sounds like. It was a sort of a house father at a fraternity. Being the adult in the house, paid my room and board, but the place was exactly like Animal House. And those guys were there to party. They were not there to study. And it's kind of hard trying to be the adult in the room when your younger counterparts have other ideas. So I remember I woke up in the fraternity house on my 30th birthday, and I thought, what am I doing here? But the International Affairs Department was very happy to see me because the state wanted to give them money for tuition for veterans, which were few and far between at that time. So rather than the one quarter waiver I was supposed to get, they gave me 5 straight quarters of tuition